Hey, what's up, guys? Nate here. So, getting ready to do the part one of my comparison of the Brisk spark plug against just your standard everyday copper plug. In this case, it's going to be an NGK. As I mentioned, for those of you that follow me on Instagram, I decided to test a set of Brisk LGS spark plugs. Now, Brisk is a company who's been around for a long time, over 85 years. They're the 7th largest spark plug manufacturer in the world. But not a lot of people, especially in the LS kind of performance world, have really heard about them or know much about them. For some reason, they seem to be somewhat popular with the C7 community. But C6s and other LS stuff like that, you might not hear them that much. And that's because they're not the cheapest plugs. Brisk has made a name for themselves because they use silver in their spark plugs. And they use silver because silver is the best conductor of electricity. So they feel that by using silver, they're going to get the most powerful spark that they possibly can for the best combustion. And along with that, you get benefits such as horsepower and torque. Now, another reason why I chose specifically the LGS spark plug, and you'll be able to see some of the physical attributes of it in just a bit, is out of all the plugs that they offer, that one seems to have the best results in terms of actually making horsepower and torque. Now, I'm going to test this real world on a car in my C6 Corvette when we finish doing some of the mods on it in a couple weeks, and I'm going to test it on the dyno, and I'm going to put it up against some NGK plugs just to see how they perform and if they're worth the money. They are about $13 a plug, so they are definitely not cheap. Now, if you are used to buying iridium plugs, they're very similar in price to iridium plugs, although they don't last anywhere as long. They usually last only about 20,000 miles. But for most guys, that if you're using the spark plug on a car that's not your daily, just like your fun car or a track car, well, 20,000 miles might take you 2, 3, or more years. So you could still get quite a bit of life out of the spark plugs. However, their selling point is that, or what got me interested, is that quite a few actual shops and racers tested the plugs and were getting about an average of 7 rear wheel horsepower gains and 9 to 10 foot-pounds of torque to the wheels, gained by simply switching over to the Brisk spark plug versus the NGKs. So in this quick comparison that I'm about to do, I'm going to compare the Brisk. In this case, here are the part numbers. It's BR7EF NGK. It's a heat range 7 spark plug. Pretty common. I have TR6 is probably the most common plug for LS motors. This one is one heat range colder than that. Great for boosted cars. Nitrous BR7EF. And the Brisk plug that we're going to be testing is the GOR14 LGS. Now the 14 is the heat range. The 15, for them, I believe it goes 15, 14, 13. The 15 is going to be close to a TR6. They say that's the equivalent to the NGK's 6 heat range. This is in the middle. It's not as cold as the 7, but it's in between the heat range of a TR6 and the BR7EF plugs. It's what I'll be using for my application, what I'll be doing. But for just comparing them in physical size, it won't make a difference, just to see the differences between the two plugs. So let's go ahead and take a look at them. All right, so let's get into this comparison here of the NGK, a standard BR7EF copper plug, to the Brisk LGS copper plug. Now these plugs are very similar in their heat range. This is NGK heat range 7, and this is a Brisk heat range 14. Now they advertise heat range 15 being close to a or the equivalent of the TR6. This is not as cold as this BR7 plug, but it is in between, according to Brisk themselves, in between a TR6 and the BR7 EF plug. So I don't need something as cold as this BR7 on my car. I'm using TR6s, but I wanted something just slightly colder to be on the safe side, especially since I haven't used this before and I'm just testing them out. So this is a plug that I will be using in my LS3. So first, let's look really quick here. The NGK plug, nothing special. Now I forgot to bring my micrometer. So if you're a super nerd, I'm not going to be able to get super specific in lengths and details. There you have it, BR7EF. Just your standard plug. We'll put them side by side in just a bit. Copper, nothing special about it. As you can see, it has a very small gap. I want to say 25 thousandths, but I forgot. I think I might have gapped this one myself, but I'm not sure. But it's a cold plug, as you can tell. A stock one for an LS would be like a TR5 or 55. So this is 2 ranges colder, great for nitrous or boosted applications. Nothing special here, your standard plug. The biggest difference between these two is going to be in the ground strap design, and this is what makes, I got my little pointer, I'll be using my screwdriver as a pointer, but this is what makes this design so unique. Premium plug, GOR14 LGS. If you go onto their website, they'll break down all of these letters for you and what they mean in case you have a custom application. Each one of these letters has a specific designation into the dimensions of the plug, and the LGS is its design. Now they actually designed this spark plug in partnership with Lamborghini, but not Lamborghini for their cars, Lamborghini boat engines, I believe. But anyway, Lamborghini nonetheless. Let's start from this end, and we'll go over. If you notice here, little interesting. It's threaded in there, you see, so it's not one piece like the NGK. So supposedly that center electrode, which is basically a rod there that you see in the middle that goes through the plug to here, is silver, or at least silver. I wonder if it's silver that's lining over copper. I'm not sure. All they say is silver, so we'll go with that. So as you can see here, it's this end, I'm assuming, screws on there. So it's not one whole piece like the NGK is. Anyway, now what according to them makes this plug special is a couple of things. One is that you get multiple sparks. Now there are other spark plugs out there that have multiple ground straps. We've seen, I think Bosch has one that has 4 and whatnot, and some other manufacturers. However, the other manufacturers, even if they have 4 ground straps, you only get one spark at a time to one of those 4. This plug can actually have multiple sparks at the same time. Now, I'll get into that a little deeper later. I got some information there from them. But the thing about it also is that the spark can protrude deeper into the combustion chamber. It is directly exposed to your air and fuel mixture, and so you can get a much more complete burn, according to Brisk. Now, if you notice, the porcelain here has a bit of a round design here. See, it's not flat. It tapers up a bit. And so the theory is that the spark comes out of the center electrode, and it actually travels on the porcelain insulator to the ground strap. So you have a much bigger area here that the spark plug covers, meaning you're going to get a bigger spark. So it has to travel this distance here, whereas your standard plug, for example, if it's gapped at 25 thousandths, it's only gapping, your spark's going to be no bigger than that 25 thousandths. So this is going to have not just multiple sparks, but much bigger sparks. And no, that doesn't make it hotter. Heat ranges are not in the temperature of the spark itself. Temperature ranges are how fast the plug is able to dissipate heat. And as you can see in this one, the center electrode is covered quite a bit by porcelain. So this plug should be very close, if their chart is accurate, very close into dissipating heat as this BR7 plug. Slightly hotter than this plug, but very close. Slightly cooler than a TR6. And as I mentioned before, the bluish color, they use silver because it is the best conductor of electricity out of all the metals, and that's why they use it. When you compare the plugs, what really matters is, you see this little tapered seat there, that's where it rests against the cylinder head. So as you can see, the LGS spark plug, the Brisk spark plug, is longer overall in length from end to end. However, where it matters in the combustion chamber, it is ever so slightly longer. But if you were to compare it with, let's say, a stock spark plug with a stock gap, then it would probably be the same length in terms of tip to tip. But just so you see the difference there. But everything else is the same. The NGK has about a thread and a half more. One more thread there of engagement. But very similar. The hex on the NGK is a little bit thicker, but you're not supposed to put them on there super tight either. And as you can see, the Brisk spark plug is slightly longer in overall diameter. But where it matters, from this end up, as you can see here, this is the only section that matters. This is where it seals against the cylinder head, and right here is where it is in the combustion chamber. So it is exposed to a lot more of your fuel mixture. Another thing that makes the Brisk plug, unique is that, as you can see here, on the standard plug, the ground strap blocks a bit of that flame kernel. So that spark, it's going to spark and it's going to ignite the fuel, and that fuel, the flame kernel as they call it, it's going to expand, that explosion, right? It's going to expand away from that spark plug, And when you have a strap, a ground strap, like, you know, any average plug like this, that's blocking that. So with the Brisk plugs, there is absolutely nothing blocking that flame kernel from expanding, and so you get a much more complete burn of the fuel and air mixture, and that's supposedly where the advantage comes from using the spark plug. So multiple sparks per the same revolution, a bigger spark, bigger multiple sparks that are deeper into the combustion chamber and exposed, much better exposed for a much more complete burn. So those are the differences here. And as you can see, that insulin, look at me, man, I need more coffee. That porcelain insulator there is pretty good size, so it's helping keep that heat low. One thing too I want to mention, because this is silver, they will not have the detonation issues that copper plugs have. And what I mean is, on a copper plug here, if you have a plug that is too hot of a heat range, that means that the plug is not getting rid of the heat fast enough. And so what'll start to happen is the ground strap will start to glow red. Because what you want to happen is that heat from all around here, you want it to go to the cylinder head and get dissipated. However, if it's too hot, that heat's gonna hang around right here, and all this right here is gonna start getting red hot. And you'll see sometimes when you look at used plugs, you'll be able to tell the heat discoloration and how far it goes into the threads to tell how hot it's getting. And then you'll be able to read on the strap the timing marks to see where your timing is at. Now with these plugs, if with a standard plug, if it gets too hot, this will stay glowing red and will cause detonation, because that fuel, as soon as it gets sprayed into the combustion chamber and comes into contact with a glowing hot ground strap, it's going to ignite, and you're going to have detonation, and it's not going to be very good. With the Brisk plugs, the silver, if it gets that hot, if you have that much detonation or a lean condition, they will actually melt before they'll melt, and they won't cause detonation. They're not going to glow red. They will melt before they get hot enough to glow in your combustion chamber. Now, I'm not saying you want melted spark plugs in your combustion chamber, but basically the only thing that what will happen is the ground strap will fail and you won't have a spark, and then you'll have a dead cylinder, and no spark is better than detonation. So that you do have that kind of peace of mind. Now, on a naturally aspirated, you probably, unless your tuning is horrible and you have just way too much timing, that shouldn't be an issue. The only thing is, I don't know how you would read timing on these. Now, that's kind of a lost art. I used to do it on my car just to make sure I have the right heat range, and used to look at the timing mark and show it to my tuner. Not sure how you can do it with these. Obviously on the dyno, we're going to see what the car likes and go off of air fuel ratios, but it doesn't look like you'll be able to read timing marks on these. Now, I'll talk to Brisk and I'll see what their opinion is on that. But anyway, there you go. That is the physical comparison between the NGK and the Brisk LGS spark plugs. Alright guys, so there it was. You were able to see the physical differences of the spark plug, the Brisk spark plug, and what makes it special, or at least according to to what Brisk claims and what other shops have seen. So whether this spark plug is worth what they cost, well, that's going to depend whether I see the same type of gains that others have seen on my application or not. That being said, I would not recommend this plug for a force induction application. I don't think they do either. They have other spark plugs, other silver spark plugs as well, that are better suited for force induction. But what I say it's not worth it in this case is that, let's say it does gain the 7 foot-pounds of torque and the 7 rear-wheel horsepower and the 10 foot-pounds of torque. Is that worth an $80 difference between these plugs? If you're buying 8 of them. For naturally aspirated, sure. Especially if you're road racing, or even if you're drag racing. 7 horsepower, 10 foot-pounds. That can be a difference there that you'll be able to notice. On force induction, I mean, you're going to be north of 600, 700, 800 horsepower. So, and you're going to be changing them more often. So in a case like that, just stick with copper, because $30 for a set of 8 plugs or whatever they cost. Throw them in and out, it's not a problem. But for my application, what I'll be doing, road racing, NA setup, cammed LS3 on E85, these will be worth it if they perform as, I don't want to say as advertised, even though I guess they do advertise it, but if I see the numbers that others have claimed to have gotten with them, then I think it'll be worth it, because people spend hundreds of dollars on things like cold air intakes, intake manifolds, mufflers, hundreds, even thousands of dollars for sometimes 10 or 15 horsepower. So this is getting you, a decent gain for $100 for 8 of them. That's the way I see it. Then it kind of starts being worth it. And if you're buying iridium plugs, you're spending that much already anyway. So why not see some horsepower while you're at it? So anyway, part 2, the next video is going to be us on the dyno. We're going to put the car in the dyno when it's ready to make power pulls and tuning, and we're going to first have copper plugs in there. We're going to do all the tuning, get the most power out of it, and then we're going to swap the plugs and see if it makes a difference. Also, we're going to see if, because of the design of the plug, we're curious, does that mean you can add more timing versus the regular style plug? Is it going to be able to take a little bit more timing to get a little bit more power out of it? Because then you can gain even more, if that's the case, than just by a simple swap. So we'll see. There's other questions to be answered. This was just looking at them physically next to each other. So now we're going to see if these spark plugs, the Brisk spark plugs, actually make the power and torque for reals that many people are saying. So anyways, that's it for now. Stay tuned. We got a lot of content coming up. Look for our podcast, LS_Freaks podcast on Instagram. Look for us on any of your favorite podcast stations, iHeart, and whatever else you got. It should pop up. LS Freaks Podcast. On Instagram, I am Nate83, NAYT83. And also look for Skunkworks Garage here on YouTube, on Instagram, and as well as JB Performance Motors, which is a shop that I work with and that will be doing a lot of the testing. I'm also going to make some videos of all the mods I'll be doing to my car as we go. A lot of stuff to come, so stay tuned. And thanks for watching.